Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. There's been significant changes in Bangladesh. Prime Minister has resigned under pressure from the public after weeks of rioting and bloodbath. This is one hopes, always hopes, that this is the beginning of a new chapter in Bangladesh. But we in Zimbabwe, we have got memories of our own euphoria, notably in 2017. And I think many people will agree that our euphoria did not last and it has ended in tears. Ben, what do you think is happening in Bangladesh?
Good day to our viewers. Uh, yeah, well. First, I would say, it's sad that just over 100 people have died in this, protest demonstration, whatever we can call it, or civil war, basically. It's sad, how dictators would rather burn a country down than just to peacefully step aside, and let the will of the people, decide how and where the future of the country goes. It has to take, bloodshed. Right now, there is bloodshed. There is looting. There's destruction of infrastructure. All those things, you know, will cost, you know, the people of Bangladesh in the future, and not just only Bangladesh, all the countries that have gone through these, mass demonstrations, Rwanda, uh, all these, Kenya, sorry, there's so much carnage that has been created, you know, the whole infrastructure has basically come down, to point zero, which will have a negative impact even for whoever you want to take over. So instead of somebody that you want to take over coming in and actually going further to develop, they have to start building from scratch, which is very, very difficult now. So, you know, it's a way of speaking out, but one that I think should be the last resort, and should be, we should try and do it in a way. It's difficult, yes, I understand, because I mean, a dictator is somebody that, that is narcissistic, in my point of view, who will do anything to please himself and forget about the next person. But it's really sad that, you find that people have died. There is infrastructure destruction and looting from the people, from the actual people that are trying to move, their agenda forward.
In the case of Bangladesh, the prime minister who has resigned, she was elected in January in an election that many of the opposition boycotted and many people condemned as being flawed, which in itself brings the one to point out that elections, if they are flawed, the international community have always come out and said this is not a free, fair, and credible process. In our region, I believe ZANU PF would have been denied legitimacy last year if Zimbabweans had not been so easily conned by Chamisa to participate. But to come back to Bangladesh, the the failure to hold free, fair, and credible elections is at the very heart of these public protests. I think in Zimbabwe, we know that after 44 years of independence, the only time there was any meaningful change was in 2017 when there was a military coup, because the country has failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections. And at the rate at which we are going, if we want change in Zimbabwe, it may have to be either another military coup or bloody street protest. And I agree with you. The problem with street protests or military coup is that they will not necessarily deliver a democratic solution, a stable democratic solution we are after. It will be a pity if Bangladesh, after all these years and struggle, is going to be yet another revolving door. Instead of coming up with a healthy and functioning democratic system of government, you've got a lot of individuals who are now looking at, it's my turn to eat. And so will be corrupt, incompetent, and the revolving door continues.
Yes, I agree with you. It's also about how you move on from such a process. Do you have a democratic process in place, or you you know a few individuals are just going to choose who they feel fit to take on the torch from there, which usually, I'm looking statistically from all these violent protests and civil wars, how they have proceeded after the whole ordeal. I must say, they really haven't moved forward. Most countries really haven't moved forward from an economic point of view. I mean, we are talking of millions, if not billions, worth of infrastructure that has been damaged. So basically, if you wanted, better living conditions as your main objective for the riot or the demonstration, then if you go and you destroy that what is there, so instead now of developing on top of what you have, you are starting from ground zero. So it will also appear as if the person that you have chosen is not ideal, but forgetting that this person had to start from ground zero. And then from a political point of view, it's also just as equally as hard, because you know like I said, it just comes up with somebody that people have in place, but they have not yet even listened to what they have to offer. Somebody that can prey on people's emotion, yeah, and work on people's emotion is a very dangerous person. People are complaining. People are complaining, and people are agitated, and then you feed onto that. People feed onto that, so it becomes toxic, because you don't offer them a solution, but you're just eating at that. So at the end of the day, you are replacing one dictator with another. So really, the choice that is made through such a process is very rash at the end of the day. And because of that toxicity, it just keeps on continuing from there where you left off, which is quite sad, especially after people have actually died for that, for that fight, for that freedom.
Vana vakatuka ZANU-PF kana ini ndonyanyisa kufara ndokuita tiri kuita zvakanaka. Ukavona vavengi vako vachikurumbidzwa nekuchikanganisa, ukavona vachiti ZANU-PF yakaipa, farai, because you are doing correct things for your country. Hongu takaita maelections edu, kuna vamwe vaitaura zvisina musoro zvikanzi maelections anofamba zvakanaka, ndezvavo.
Sorry, the 2023 elections are unique in the sense that Zimbabwe failed to hold free, fair, and credible elections, and both the regional body, SADC, and the continental body have come out strongly to say those elections were not free, fair, and credible. And yet, here is Mnangagwa insisting that they were. This is a situation that will lead up to where people feel they have no other way out. If you cannot change the regime through free, fair, and credible election, then you're left with only one option: violence. Another military coup or street protest. The alternative is to put up with the regime and suffer in silence. This cartoon is depicting the situation in Zimbabwe, where Mnangagwa is sitting and feasting while he tells the rest of the family to eat their pumpkin porridge. This situation is unsustainable. I think this is another reality that we have got to face as a nation. Question is, how are we going to end this madness? That is the question that we've got to address. And there is no easy answer to that. ZANU-PF is determined to stay in power. Of that, it's clear. This is a regime that has been in power for the last 44 years, 24 of which was with the connivance of the opposition, MDC, Triple C. And getting them out is not going to be a walk in the park. Ideally, the solution would be let's implement the democratic reform to ensure that elections in future are free, fair, and credible. But that is not going to happen. ZANU-PF Mnangagwa is determined to stay in power. He is not going to implement any meaningful reforms. And that is the reality we have got to face.
I agree with you there to say, it's evident from what he's saying there to say, when people are warning to say, what you're doing is not right. And it's just not, that voice is not coming only from Zimbabwe. It's coming even across the borders, warning that, ZANU-PF should desist from, rigging elections, the violence, human rights abuses and everything. And here is a man that is coming out, straight and saying, it doesn't matter about all that, what people are saying. That's their own buzz. Basically, that's what he's saying. It becomes very difficult, for those that want to take the diplomatic route to find, lasting solution to Zimbabwe's problems. This is where now, people come up with now the thought of demonstration and the violent way of pushing, for solutions, which usually will not end badly, will not end, good for the ruling party, because it's always in the minority. You may have the army, you may have the police, but it's always the minority, especially when people are charged up. And unfortunately, like I said, dictators are people that are very narcissistic. They really are delusional to the facts that are on the ground. They have their own image of how things are supposed to be. And usually this is not what it is exactly on the ground. So it's sad, but if we continue to go through this phase or continue to go through this path, I believe, this is the end route. There will be violence. People will fight back. I mean, surely you can push people to such an extent. And, I must say, Zimbabweans are very peaceful. They've tolerated it, such an environment for so long. But I honestly believe, you can push somebody so far before they push back. And I think as things stand, things are heating up. And unfortunately, ZANU-PF cannot see it. And then you have a situation like the Bangladesh Prime Minister, who is now living in exile, who is now on the run, because they failed to see the picture. They failed to listen to the people. And Mnangagwa is always saying, the voice of the people, is the will of God. But I fail to understand why he says that and acts exactly, this differently. It's sad, but I firmly believe if we continue on this trajectory, we will have another military coup or a civil war at the most.
Sorry. The other main problem here is that by failing to address the issue of good governance, we are leaving ourselves exposed, in the sense that we leave ourselves no other option but to have this rotating doors of dictatorships. The people of Zimbabwe have failed to come out with a well-articulated position on why Zimbabwe is a failed state. Because if they had done so, by now, we would have ended the ZANU-PF dictatorship. I've explained it before on this platform, and I'll explain it again. By the late 1990s, the people of Zimbabwe realized that ZANU-PF would never be removed from office as long as the regime retained the carte blanche powers to rig elections. That said, the question then was, what should we do about it? The solution was either we take up arms again and have another armed struggle to remove the regime from office, or we elect opposition members who will fight to implement the reforms. And in the last 24 years, there has been an opportunity to implement the reforms. It's just that MDC, CCC have wasted those opportunities, particularly during the GNU of 2008 to 2013. The failure by the ordinary people of Zimbabwe to understand that the GNU was about implementing democratic reforms is at the heart of why we are still stuck. If people understood that MDC, CCC guys had sold out, they would not be following them like sheep to the slaughter. Last year, people participated in the flawed elections after being warned this process is flawed, and that participating will give ZANU-PF legitimacy because they believed Chamisa's lie that he had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. This is the kind of naivety that we are dealing with here. We really need to move on as a people. If we do not define what is wrong with this present system, we are not going to be able to define what we want the next system to be. That is my message tonight. Thank you very much for listening. And Ben, you can go ahead and give your closing remark.
So in closing, I agree with you. You know, when we are talking about change, we are not talking about changing leadership. We want to change a rotting or a rotten system. That is the change that we are talking about. So the reason why I'm saying this is, you know, we can have a change of leadership, and we have had a change from Mugabe to Mnangagwa. People may say this was just ZANU-PF to ZANU-PF. You can have also Chamisa become president, and then he turns out that he is not the man that you need, and then you want to change him. It'll be very difficult because the system is rotten. So you want to fix the system such that, you know, you can exercise your democracy at any given time. If confidence fails in an individual, you should be able to say, no. We are disagreeing with this. And then he's voted out. So our fight should not be to say we want CCC to be government, or Chamisa to be president, or whoever. No. Our fight is let us get a proper system, one way we can exercise our democratic right. Our vote counts. We've been exercising, voting and all that, but we know that the process is rigged through the system, the current system that is there. So unless now we change, we reform this system, this is what the whole world is saying. And unfortunately, as Zimbabweans, we don't want, we want our candidates to be put forward. Just the same way when we changed Mugabe and we put Mnangagwa, he was the ideal candidate. That is why you find everybody was out in the streets celebrating. And little did they know, although some of us did know that no, this year character is is the same. People thought that we had changed as leadership, and which meant everything has changed. No, that is just the head. We need to reform the whole system. That is what even the whole world, that is what that SADC Observer Mission report was stating. You need to reform the process, the system. And then from there, you can be able to choose whoever you want to lead at the end of the day. And I hope that we understand that part, because that is the fundamental part that we need to understand going forward. Other than just picking up a character and saying, this is one that we want. I mean, in the very beginning, if you look at it, Mugabe was very, very dear to everybody. Before he managed to destroy everything, or before he became president, he was very, very dear to everybody. People did not want to believe that he would ruin the country when they were asked. But there you go. You went and did exactly that. So we don't want a repeat of this. If we continue on this path of just wanting to change leadership to suit our own, we are just going to get bad candidates because the system is rotten. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. So the message tonight is we must look at ways of stopping the revolving door, or which is more common in our part of the world. Yesterday's liberators becoming today's oppressors, and then today's liberators becoming tomorrow's oppressors. We must stop the revolving door. We need to change the system, as Ben was trying to say there. And the best way to change a system is to understand what is wrong with the present system. Then you can define what you want to be changed. Thank you very much for those of you who were able to join us tonight, and I hope you'll be able to join us again tomorrow. Good night.